And then years later, you bump into Noriega in the federal prison system.
Yeah, in Miami. Right before I was to be released, they take you to the jail where you close. So they took me to Miami, and they had him in a cage. It's funny because I don't know. I never did state time like you did, but in the federal system in Miami, MCC Miami, they had like a yard which was almost like indoor. I mean, walled in, indoor, and they had a cell in the corner, and actually made it almost like he had his own exercise bicycle in there, but he was like like I felt almost like going to a zoo and watching a freaking monkey. So I walked up to his cell, not to his cell, to the bars where he was. I mean, everybody could walk up to him. And I said, Manuel, because yeah, to me, he ain't no freaking general anymore. I said, do you remember me? He acted like he didn't know me. Maybe he don't remember. I said, dude, you don't look that tough in the monkey suit you got on. I said, you just like me now, buddy. So, yeah. And then a lot of people testifying. I said, they wanted me to testify, but I didn't. Look, it was his problem. What they want me to tell him? That I gave him 250,000? I mean, everybody knew it, so it's no big deal. But he he got what he deserved. He was just if you're gonna be a gangster, be a gangster. If you're gonna be law enforcement, be law enforcement. But just don't be both. And that's how I felt about him.
So Carlos later, he agreed to testify against Noriega. And as a US federal government witness, Carlos later admitted that the cartel gave 10 million to the CIA for the war in Nicaragua to try and get a pass during the early days. So they were actually working with the CIA. What have you heard about how the CIA was sourcing this coke, that they were, arms for coke, Iran Contra scandal?
I didn't know much about it because that was during the time I was in prison. But when I first got started, so let's go back to 76. Who really starts the drug trade in America, which was marijuana, right? Besides the heroin that was going on, I don't know for how many years in New York with the French connection and the Italian mob. the marijuana crowd that started the marijuana, the big movers of marijuana in the early 70s in Miami, were a bunch of kids, Cuban kids, that had all they wanted was to go to Cuba. They were part of the Bay of Pig invasion, right? So all they wanted to do was to go to Cuba, invade Cuba, and get Castro out of power. So they were trained by the CIA, and in Mexico, different places, CIA would give them a ship, and as they were going out there, they get intercepted, and then later on, the CIA will give them another ship or the same ship in a different color. And then, from the personal knowledge that I had, someone in that CIA at that time said, shit, let's teach this Cubans how to smuggle marijuana. They're going to start making a lot of money. And when they do, they're going to forget about Cuba. Is that a myth or not? I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, all of a sudden, the Cubans, without knowing anything about smuggling, started bringing a lot of marijuana into the United States. And all of a sudden, they forgot about going to go to Cuba. Right? They started making a lot of money, living the high life, and all of that. So the word was, and I mean, it's very notorious during my time, a guy named Monkey Morales, who was a CIA agent. He was as corrupt as it could be. So the word was that that's who got the Cubans started, and that's who the Cubans were giving money to do all their operations. So common sense would tell me that if you got this big budget the Congress does not approve, where's the money coming from? It doesn't fall out of the skies. So, but, I never got into that part with any of that because I just felt that, I mean, even when I was offered to reach out, like to Monkey Morales, and I'm like, when a person is double dealing, so let's say now he is betraying the government who he works for, what's it going to be that tomorrow he's going to betray me? So, I felt uncomfortable. Number one, if I got caught, I want to get caught for smuggling drugs, not for treason. You know, none of that stuff. And I definitely did not want to get involved with anything buying off agents like a CIA. I mean, we bought local law enforcement left and right. I mean, go back and read the cases. Probably the toughest prosecutor Miami, the United States ever had, Attorney General, was Janet Reno. And look at the cases that she literally had to dismiss, you know, because you talk about, I don't know if you ever read the case Video Canary, but read about that case. It was this guy who had an office at the Coconut Grove Hotel, and he had a camera. He filmed all the drug dealers in Miami. They arrested 150, 160 of them. They ended up letting them all go because of the cases were dropped because her head law enforcement guy was under everybody's payroll. So that was easy to buy. And you don't care, no one cares about local. But when you're at the federal level, man, it's just, a lot of it, if you get arrested, becomes a big political thing. And where you can end up being able to work out a deal and get off time, you can't do it if it becomes a public shame, right? Because of publicity, etc. So I never dealt with that. But yeah, that Pablo was involved later on. I found out that he was involved with the CIA. That was a big rumor. I don't have no way of substantiating because I wasn't. Like I said, I didn't want to participate in any of that. To me, was, hey, I'm a smuggler. You know, yeah, we can pay the campaign of a judge. We can buy a judge. We can buy a president of a Latin American country. No one gives a damn, you know. But, and honestly, to be 100% truthful, in the United States, I couldn't buy it. We tried on 3 occasions where we felt we had a good connection to get to a DEA, to an FBI agent. We tried, and actually it was through a sheriff. But the thing that we weren't able to, they never bid. And what we were willing to pay for, Shaun, was nothing real risky. Was simply let us know whenever there's an operation or my name pops up in any database or anything like that, right? Which at the end of the day, how would they get busted on something like that? Short of me telling them, but it's their word against my word. So we felt that it was something that they would have an out if somebody else told, and we never could get anyone to bite. So now, are they corrupt people? There's corrupt everywhere, man. You know that.
Yeah, in my War on Drugs books, I wrote that the Medellin cartel was a legal construct, so that the prosecutors had more weapons in America, and Colombia was actually, every area of Colombia had its own boss, and then they just strung certain guys together to make the Medellin cartel. Yeah,
and that's what the United States did, right? Because there was no Medellin cartel. Exactly for that. They created this. Actually, I think that even they come up with the cartel name when, remember during Jimmy Carter, when they had the oil embargo and they talked about the oil cartels. I think that's how they come up with the name. They saw that with the organized. But the truth is, there was, when I first got started, one organization, 4 guys and me. Then originally by himself was Pablo Correa, which was huge. And then in 1984, when I get out, there was a lot. That's when Leather was there. That's when Gacha, Pablo, different groups, like Castaños, you know, they were drug dealers. You know, all of them were. So they were all different. And a lot of them were jealous of each other. So everyone had their own routes. Everyone had their own pilots. Everyone had their own assassins, you know, the whole infrastructure. That's why when they wrote in my book, the publisher wrote, U.S. head of all operations for the Medellin cartel, I got pissed. Because number one, yeah, I know that probably helps you sell books. But number 2 is a lie. Because there was no Medellin cartel. There was different groups. Now you go to Sinaloa, and yeah, you got the Sinaloa cartel, right? You know, El Chapo control all of that. And the Gulf cartel, those are cartel. But today in Colombia, never. There was no such thing. And they were most of them jealous of each other, you know? And they attest things. If I was to say during the height of Pablo, after he killed Frank, who was the wealthiest and had the best organization? Gacha. by far, by far. I would say, and very close in danger to Pablo. I'll tell you what happened to me with that. We're one of the first people to take an airplane to Mexico, and I did it with him. It was his load, right? It was 200 kilos of mine. It was 400 kilos of his, and we were going to go to Juarez, and we're going to land in a ranch of a very famous musician, right? The guy that was our connection was the agent of a lot of the famous musicians in Mexico at that time. Great guy. Aurelio was his name. But all of a sudden, the plane, there was a big operation, a federalist operation there, and we couldn't land. We landed the plane, but we couldn't cross the merchandise for a while. So the same night when the plane got there, we have a code, and I called Gacha, and I said, look, the family's safe, right? That's all we had to say. Perfect. But we know it landed. Next day, when they flew from El Paso, came someone to tell me the whole deal. Said, look, it's going to take about 20 days, but it's safe. You can come see it. You can check it out. It's all there. It's all stashed. We don't want to take a risk. So I called him, and I said, look, send me somebody, and we'll go to El Paso, and we'll cross and check it out. No need, doctor. I've worked for you for a long time. I trust you. Fine. 29, he said, just call me when it's ready. So 29 days later, we brought it to Miami, and I called him to deliver it. And the deal is whenever I deliver, at the same time, I would get my money, right? And we had a very, very sophisticated way of making deliveries. So when we get the money later and we're counting it, we realize that it was $400,000 short, $1,000 a kilo short. So I called him, and this is how he was. Shaun, the guy never raised his voice. I don't know if this guy ever screamed in his life. I don't know if he had, well, I never heard it. He goes to me, he said, doctor? Oh, so I said, thanks, and when can I expect the rest? Well, I said that to his guy. His guy says, this is all they told me, payment in full. So I called him, and we had codes and we had scramblers. I said, we're $400,000 short. And he says, thank you. That's the cost for my merchandise being a month late, and hung up the phone on me. That's the end of the conversation, buddy. I called Manuel and I said, look, man, this just happened to me. He's like, forget about it. Don't even try it. Don't even call him. Because just calling him to tell him you're not going to settle for that, you're dead. So he would say this is one way he operated a lot. You'd come to him and say, look, I want 50 kilos. And he would say to you, okay, Shaun, how long you want those 50 kilos for? You say, a month. He said, okay, I'm going to give you 6 weeks. And what he did is, 6 weeks later, you had to give him 55 kilos. He charged you 10%. Buddy, if 9 o'clock, the day of that 6 week, you were not there with the 55 kilos, at 10 o'clock, you were dead. You couldn't come at 10 o'clock and say, I got your money now. No understanding, no patience, no nothing. Great to do business with him, but boy, you don't ever screw up, because it was all by his rules. And but he didn't go around killing people like Pablo did. Pablo, if he kills you, he'll kill every male in your family. Gasha wasn't like that. I mean, he killed a lot of people. He kept a book with all the names of everyone that he killed in. But it was more business transactions, whereas Pablo was killing anyone that got in the way. I mean, there was a joke at one time where a cartoon where this guy is carrying a police officer, and another Colombian citizen said, where are you? He says, I'm going to the bank to cash this check. Because he's like, every police officer, I think it was $5,000 that he would give you for every cop that you killed. And when he went through Medellin at the beginning, dude, if you even looked at his car, I mean, literally looked at his car and mentioned to everyone you saw him, you were dead. You and every male in your family. And that's what ruined. And, when he decided to run for office, we thought he was crazy, but at the same time, we're wondering, like, is he really doing it because he really believes in helping the poor? Because he built all those cities, right? But what people don't realize is he built them. He took credit for it. Maybe he did put some of his money, but he charged all of us. Anything he did, all of us had to pay. Everybody. That's how he got killed. That's how the war with the Cali cartel. When Pacho Herrera was late, and then he's like, screw you. And, and there goes a war, because it should have been a war. Those guys outside of Pacho, which was like him, the other guys, the brothers, man, they were business people, they were not violent people at the beginning, but then you know how it goes. You kill one and then you end up having to kill more and more, and that's how they all end up dying. So
to land in Mexico, did you have to get the green light from Felix Gallardo?
At that time, I don't know who already, because we only brought in 2 loads through Mexico. We brought that one, and the other one that I talked about in Vlad TV, where I get, where Pablo puts a contract on me because we used one of his trips in outside of Matamoros, that town that's outside of Houston, I believe. And the guy gets caught, and then he blames me that I told him to use a strip, and I didn't even know nothing about it. So when Pablo sends this guy who's his number 1 assassin at the time, who used to be the head of the operation in the U.S. for Frank, who Pablo killed, and who I helped a lot when Frank got killed. I helped him a lot, and in different way. One of them was keeping one of the sons in Miami with me. So when he comes to Miami and calls me that he's got a contract on me, and he knew, knowing me, and he's like, I meet him at Daily Mall. His name was Victor, and we called Pablo, and it was a lie. And I had a very strong reputation of not lying, because I made it a point when I first got started telling all my people nobody gets killed for telling the truth, and there was an incident back, I don't know if you saw that on Black TV, when Pablo proposed to me to insure the loads. So he came up with this. I mean, the guy, literally, I think the guy, had he not been a drug dealer and had he gotten to college, he could have been anything. The guy was pretty brilliant. And so anyway, he's like, we're going to start charging $10,000. We're charging $7,000 at that time. And I'm like, why $10,000? Well, we're going to insure the load. Now, I had never lost a load. Never. Not one. And so I said, we never lose. Why would we insure a load? He said, well, what I'm going to tell people is, because again, so I'm bringing 200 for him, but I don't know who the 200 really belong to. What he would do is, he get other people to come in, and if the load was lost, or part of it is lost, everybody else is lost and not his. I mean, I know for a fact, there's a rumor going on that Pablo was informing with the DEA for years. For years. He turned in hundreds of loads of everybody else's loads. But anyway, so he's like, what we'll do is, we charge him $10,000. Every third load, I'm going to tell him that the load got lost. No one's going to suffer, because the insurance says, I'll give him the cocaine back in Colombia. So all they lost is a little bit of time. But at that time, cocaine was, I think, 2,000 to 3,000, because this was towards 87 in Colombia. And he's like, but now we can sell it in Miami at retail, and we didn't have to put up $1. And if something really happens to it, then we don't lose anything. I'm like, it's a great plan. We can make more money, but I'm not going to do it. And he's like, why? I said, because I don't participate in a lie. I said, because if today I do something with you lying to others, when is someone going to come on there and tell you that I said something against you? It's a lie, and you're going to believe it, because you know that George is capable of lying. So I didn't. And that's what ended up saving me doing that when that time happened with that load. Because I thought, I said, number one, if I known it was your strip, I would ask for it, because you used mine. And I said, number two, when is someone going to tell you that I, lied to you, and you're gonna believe it. So that's that saved me. But yeah, and at the beginning it was Felix, you know, that was running everything over there. I don't know very much after that because when Mexico really started getting big, it was in '87, and at that time is when I walked away. I walked away in February of '87. So, and I walked away I moved away from Miami because I knew, like I tell people, when you want to change your life, the first thing you do, change your environment. If I stay in Miami, that's all I know. And that's what everybody knows. And out of sight, out of mind, right? So I didn't go back to Miami where I thought, I used to think that the sun would rise and fall in Miami. I love Miami. I didn't go back for 3.5, 4 years. And I was only 90 miles away because I didn't want no one to see me. I didn't want no one. Years go by. I get out of prison in 94. I come to Miami to visit my parents in 95, 96. I'm at a gas station getting gas with my brother, and someone screams out my name. And it's like, and then he starts telling this guy, you see that guy? That guy was a legend. And I'm like, holy shit, man, I've been running for this all my life. And at a freaking gas station, I run into this guy. And yeah, so it was a crazy world, not to say the least.
Out of all of the factions of the so-called Medellin cartel, it seems like the Ochoas got through the war with the least damage. I think only Fabio ended up in the feds. Why do you think that the Ochoas managed to get through it like that?
Okay, number one, numerous factors. I always wonder why they even got involved in anything, because their father was a multimillionaire in his own right. I mean, one of them studied at University of Miami. They were very educated kids. They came from a very structured family, and they were smart. I don't believe all this thing about all the killings that people attest to them. There was killing that was tested to us, and I'm going to tell you this under every Bible. Never in my life did I take a human being's life or anything like that. Not because I didn't want to, because I'll tell you, there was 3 times I wanted to order the hit on 3 different people. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you hear, someone wants to kill you, and you got power to wipe them out. But Manuel Garces, who started this whole thing, used to say to me, we can make $1 million any day, but we can bring a life back. And I'm not a killer. I grew up on a good family, with great value. So when they were able to make the deal, to go to prison, they did. And I think that in honesty, I would, I don't know. I don't know if they cooperate a lot with the government or not. Have you ever watched the series Pablo Escobar, El Patrón del Mal?
Yes.
On Netflix. It's the most realistic of all those series, right? We know Narcos is, like you say, the real reason after Narcos, you got so many facts, so much better than them. But again, they're entertainment, right? So, and it's a good, I like it. I enjoy it. It's sad because I find myself rooting for the bad guy again. And I was watching that series, Pablo Escobar, and I kept saying to myself, somebody is talking. Because they got that series, they got that whole soap opera so right. Man, Shaun, the guy even looked like freaking Pablo, man. The guy walked like Pablo. The guy kept his little notebook like Pablo did. It was crazy. And so many things that happened in the series that very few people, that I'm like, man, who the hell? Because I know there wasn't that many people left. And then at the end, I don't know if it's true or not. It's just my thinking, and all respect to the shows. I never met them, never dealt with them, nothing against them. I think one of them talked. And the reason is this. If you see throughout the series, though, especially towards the end, they keep portraying themselves as innocent in everything. Yeah, we didn't participate in this, or they didn't participate in that, or, on and on, which they did, But I met a lot of the people. I was in jail with one of the main guy that worked for them that actually was named Fabio Ochoa too. And Most of their people that worked for them were good guys that I met. They were not those hardcore killers or anything like that. So, number one, by no means were they more. Did they have more money than Pablo? I think a lot of people had more money because, man, Pablo used to spend tons in all those assassins. Now, he made a lot of people pay up for it. But I think out of all the groups, I would say that they were probably the most decent. And like I said, I had no dealings with them. Zero. Never brought a load with them. The closest we came was to buying using one of their airplanes to bring a load from Colombia to Mexico because they had these Mitsubishis that had a huge range, and they offered it to us. But I don't know who got the plane from because he didn't have those planes that had that type of range that the Ochoas did. But I think that they were more educated. If they got involved bad in violence, probably was a result of their sister kidnapping. That makes anybody do anything. But again, I have no dealings with them. My main dealings were prior to 80 was Manuel Garces, a guy that no one has ever mentioned. Jorge Ordonez was probably one of the richest guys, had a mansion in Colombia with a theater for 50 people. Very wealthy guy, very decent guy. And two other guys. And then when I got out, mainly first with Frank. That's the first person I started working with. Then he gets killed. I start working. Manuel starts bringing in loads with Gacha and Pablo. And that's the only people that. And then, I knew the Castaños well. I met one of them in my house in Miami. They became very, very violent when one of the brothers got murdered. So, and then, Pablo brought upon himself, because he kept bringing. See, this is the thing. Had Pablo not made everyone that was with him his enemies, I don't think nothing would have ever happened to him. Because let's be real, man. He's the only man in history to bring a country to his knees. He made them surrender. There's no ending for buts about it. And had he not killed those two brothers inside the prison, he could have done his time the way he was living it, prostitutes, luxury. And these are the two guys that grew up with him. And what went down, nothing like it went down in Narcos. Nothing, it's a different side of the story. Actually, he almost got killed that day. He almost got killed because one of those two pulled a knife on him, and that's how they ended up getting killed. Because one of Pablo's guys was close to him and had a pistol, and when the guy went to stab Pablo and he came like that close, the guy shot him in the head.